Hey guys, what's up? How are you doing? Welcome back to a brand new Brawl Stars video. This is part 2 of the Ultimate Brawl Stars Beginner Guide. Today we're going to be talking about strategies for all of the main modes in the game. This is just everything excluding Showdown, and with these strategies you should be able to push trophies super fast within the game. There are a ton of helpful tips in this video even if you aren't a beginner, so make sure to watch until the very end. But with that being said, let's start with the strategies for gem grab. So you really want to try to leave all the gems to just a single person on your team, or at least most of the gems onto one single person, because if you have them spread out, then once you get all 10 gems and your countdown starts when you need to survive for those 15 seconds and they kill even just one of you, you're gonna have below 10 gems and your countdown will be stopped. But if you have all 10 gems on a single person, then the other two people can focus on defending, and even if they die during your 15-second countdown, you'll still have those 10 gems and the countdown will continue. So it's a lot easier to win the game when only one person needs to stay alive rather than every single person on your team. So you really want to focus as many gems as possible on a single person, and you want them to stay alive at all costs. So it should be someone who has a ranged attack, who doesn't need to get really up close and personal to attack, and someone who has at least like a medium amount of health. Brawlers that would be great at fulfilling this role would be someone like Poco or Nita, and I guess if you've unlocked them, the mythic brawlers Mr. P and Jean are also very good choices for this. But now if you want to be the gem carrier on your team, make sure that you're the safest person at all times, because no matter what, you want to keep those gems and you don't want to die. So that means your teammates can just be as aggressive as you want, and if you don't want to rely on them, it's a great idea to just take all the gems for yourself, because that way if your teammates do something stupid and they die, it won't matter because they won't drop any gems. So if you're the gem carrier, just make sure you never really walk too far onto your opponent's side of the map, because they could catch you by surprise, for example like with Bull's super, and just instantly charge up on you and kill you before you even realize it, and then all of the gems are just going to drop on that side of the map if you have them, and it's super hard to come back from that. So just make sure you stay on your side for pretty much the entire game. Just get gems when you can, but most of all, be safe. Don't just go in for a gem if there are a bunch of people nearby, because then you're going to instantly die, drop all the gems, and give up any lead that you may have in the game. And then if you're not going to be the gem carrier, just try to focus on protecting that person on your team who's collecting all the gems. You want to mainly focus on killing your opponents and forcing them to sort of run away from that mine in the center, so that way your gem carrier can just go in and safely pick up those gems, and that's going to win you the game. Now once your countdown starts, once you get those 10 gems, the person who's carrying all those gems should just run straight back to the spawn. Don't try to finish off any kills or anything. You just want to focus on getting in cover, hide in the grass, get behind the walls, because if you do that, it's going to be super hard for your opponents to get all the way on your side, find which patch of grass you're hiding in, and then kill you on top of that. So if you do that, you'll have a great shot at winning, and the people who aren't the gem carriers can focus on doing all the defense and stuff, since if they die, it doesn't matter, and that's the whole strategy behind gem grab. Now if your opponents get the countdown because they got the first 10 gems, you don't want to panic and just run in immediately by yourself. You do only have 15 seconds, but you can move a lot in those 15 seconds. You basically have one shot at winning the game. You can go and try to kill the person on your opponent's team with the most gems, but if you die there, you're gonna respawn and you won't be able to make it back in time. So you have to wait for your entire team to go in at once. If you go in alone, all 3 of your opponent's shots are gonna be targeted on you, and it's gonna be near impossible to survive, let alone kill someone else. So you need all 3 people on your team pushing in at once, and that's going to give you the best chance at winning the game. Never go in by yourself. Just wait for your opponents to respawn if they have to, and then make sure you're all going in together. And another cool trick you can do in gem grab is if your opponents have 10 gems but you're already at 8 or 9 gems and their countdown starts, they run back to their spawn trying to hide. Actually don't follow them in this situation, because you can actually stop the timer just by collecting the next few gems that spawn in the center of the map and getting 10 gems yourself, because if you're at the same amount of gems as them, it'll stop their countdown. And then if you get one more, once you get that 11th one, you'll actually start your own countdown. So this is a much more consistent way to stop your opponents from winning in that scenario, rather than trying to go on the aggressive and trying to kill that one person all the way in the back of the map. You can just pick up those extra gems and make your gem count equal to their gem count, and that way you'll stop their countdown in a much easier way, and it's a lot less risky. Moving on to Brawl Ball. Now if you're running a brawler in Brawl Ball like Shelly, Colt, Brock, El Primo, any brawler that can break obstacles with your super, then it's a smart idea to actually use your super solely for the purpose of breaking the walls right in front of the goal, like you can see on a map like this. This will save a ton of time because you won't have to get the ball around that long wall and trying to shoot in the goal at an awkward angle. You can just shoot straight from the center of the map if you have the opportunity. So breaking those walls is actually a very important thing. Obviously, you want to try to hit other opponents while you're breaking your walls with that super shot if you can, but if if you just use it solely for breaking the walls, it's not at all a waste. But do keep in mind, most of the time in other modes, you're not going to want to use your super only to break walls. You want to try to hit people and of course deal damage, kill them, and get that advantage. And another tip for Brawl Ball is that passing the ball is the fastest way of moving it. So you always want to pass the ball as much as possible. Never hold the ball for that long unless there's no one nearby to attack you and no one to pass it to. So then you can just walk it up closer to the goal and force your opponents to sort of stay closer back to their goals. That way they can defend you. But usually you just want to get rid of the ball right when you get it, and you just want to throw it forward closer to your opponent's goal, but also away from your opponent so they don't immediately grab it and throw it back to your side. And if you just keep throwing it close to their goal over and over again, you'll be able to just move closer and closer to their goal, and eventually it'll result in a score. But then if there's a teammate in front of you, for example, and there's no one attacking them, what you always want to do is just immediately pass it to them. And that's just going to save you a lot of time because passing the ball is the quickest way of movement. So if you can just immediately pass it to them, always take that opportunity if you have it. Never try to steal the spotlight or whatever and just walk it in yourself. Even if you think you have it, always pass it to the teammate in front of you because it's just the safest way to get that ball closer to the goal. And also another cool tip is that you can actually throw the ball through other people if you're close enough to them. You have to be almost on top of them. So this is something that can be sort of annoying about the game if your opponents use it against you. So make sure you never get too close to your opponents on defense if they're about to score, because they might be able to shoot the ball directly through you, and you don't want them to do that. So if you don't want to get cheesed by that, just make sure you're staying a decent distance away from them. Next up is Bounty. So with Bounty, the strategy is fairly simple. You just want to focus on getting kills without dying yourself. And now dying in Bounty is a huge loss for your team, and here's why. Now if you just go in to your opponent's team and get a single kill, but then they kill you after, you're getting only 2 stars from your kill, but your opponents are getting 3 stars from killing you. So you're essentially losing a star if you just rush in like that and try to get a singular kill. Now if you go into their team and get 2 kills, that means you're getting 4 stars at the start of the game at least, because they're each worth 2 stars. And then if they killed you after, well, you already got 2 kills, so that means you're worth 4 stars. So if they kill you, they're also getting 4 stars. So you literally gain no advantage if you get 2 kills and then your opponents kill you after. So that's why it's so important to not die and not be desperate about getting your kills. If there's someone at half health or even a quarter health and they're running away, you think you might be able to snag them. If it's a bit risky, don't go for it, because if you manage to kill them, but then your opponents manage to kill you, it may not seem like too much of a loss, but as I just explained, you're not going to be gaining anything from that. In fact, your opponent will be gaining more stars from you doing that. So always play as safe as possible, no matter what. Do not die in this mode. Even if you have to get no kills the entire game, just don't die and you won't be doing your team a disservice. And now in terms of the star in the center of the map, it's a bit risky. You never really want to go for it unless you're really confident that you won't die. Sometimes it's actually good to not get it so that your opponents try to get it, and then that's going to put them in a position where you can pretty easily kill them because they're sort of rushing up towards all of you, where everyone on your team can then attack that person all at once, and then it should be fairly easy to kill them if they make a desperate move like that. And then that's 2 free stars from you, and of course they only gained 1 from the center, so that immediately puts you at a lead. So always be ready right at the start of the game to try to kill your opponent if they try to go for the star at the center of the map. And if you manage to kill a bunch of opponents at the start and getting that star safe, then by all means go for it, but otherwise it's too much of a risk. For the next mode, we have Heist. Now Heist is all about managing the damage you have on your opponent's safe versus the amount of damage they have on your safe. So if you're running a brawler that deals a lot of damage, honestly, you just want to have that tunnel vision go directly for their safe. It doesn't really matter too much about defense because you just want to do as much damage to their safe as possible, and that's going to force them to defend, and then you'll just have a huge advantage in the game. So just trust me, if you're running a high damage brawler, just go directly for their safe, and that's going to be the best course of play for the game. And now high damage brawlers like this would be Barley, Colt, Rico, Bull, Shelly, and then Nita and Jesse as well, but only go up to the safe with Nita and Jesse if you have your super charged up. When you're playing Nita and Jesse in Heist, you really just want to focus on hitting other people, charging up your super, so that way you get a bear to spawn and you get your turret to spawn if you're Jesse, and you can just throw them right on the safe, and that's a ton of extra damage. But once you don't have your super, you're not dealing a lot of damage, so that's when you want to stay back and focus on defending your opponents. So essentially, you want high damage brawlers to go straight for the safe and low damage brawlers to play a bit more conservatively and focus on defending your opponent's high damage brawlers that are trying to get on your safe. And now if you end up killing them and there are no more high damage brawlers on your safe, just go to your opponent's safe. Even if there is someone who deals low damage on your safe, just ignore them and run to your opponent's safe, because you're going to have high damage and low damage brawlers on their safe while your opponents are only going to have low damage brawlers. And especially if it's a low damage brawler like Anita or Jessie that's on your safe, you want to completely ignore them, because when you're fighting with them, what you don't want them to do is charge up their super and immediately throw it on your safe, and then they become a high damage brawler and you want to take them out. So if you just don't engage with them at all, they won't be able to attack you and they won't be able to get their super, and that's exactly what you want, because they won't be dealing too much damage to your safe. So just focus on defending those high damage brawlers that I mentioned before, and once they're all gone, just go straight for the safe. But if you're a high damage brawler on your team, just go straight for the safe. Don't even worry too much about defense unless they're about to immediately win, or they just have a ton of high damage brawlers and your team can't really defend well. And then finally, we got Siege. So this mode is definitely the most difficult strategy-wise, in my opinion. So I don't really recommend playing this as a beginner because it's difficult to consistently win with a solid strategy. I actually made a whole guide about the detailed in-depth strategy of it, which you can see in the corner here. But I guess I'll go over some basic things you can start out with if you really want to try to get better at Siege. So you want to start out the game always by trying to get 2 bolts for that first siege. Since only 4 bolts are going to spawn before the first siege starts, you can guarantee by getting 2 bolts that either you're going to get the first siege bot or no one will, because the best your opponents can do is get the other 2 bolts and then you'll tie. And both those outcomes are obviously not favorable for your opponent. So you really just want to focus on getting those first 2 bolts, because winning that first siege is a huge contributing factor to whether or not you're going to win the entire game. So don't really just focus on killing people, you want to focus on getting bolts. And then if you do end up getting a siege during a game, you want to make sure you're not playing too aggressive. This is a mistake I see a lot of people do, and they just go super aggressive whenever they get a bot on their opponent's turret that you're trying to kill. They just walk right up to it and end up dying right by the time their siege ends. And that's the absolute worst possible thing you can do. Even if you end up dealing no damage to their turret, as long as you're alive by the time your bot dies, you are good to go. Because when you and your other 2 teammates are in the center of the map by the time your bot dies, you're going to have a huge advantage, because it's going to be super hard for your opponents to get back into that area. Since they were just defending the bot, they might be a bit low on health and low on ammo, and you can just keep pestering them from that center area, and it's going to be hard for them to get back into that area. So you have to focus on not dying when you're going on offense, because if you don't, then suddenly your opponents have an advantage, because all 3 of them are going to be live, even if they might not be at full health or full ammo, and they're going to be able to easily take out your 2 teammates, and then they're both going to die since you're already dead, and then they'll have full control of that center again, which is not what you want to happen. So I guess to wrap it up, overall, the most common mistake I see beginners make is just being extremely aggressive. They're playing Shelly and they like to do high damage, so they'll just try to get close to anyone and deal a ton of damage. And now that's good against certain brawlers, but when there are other people on your opponent's team who are also going to be attacking you if you try to get close to them, then it's just not worth it. And I think what people don't realize is the huge disadvantage that comes with dying. So you should definitely focus on staying safe and practice on trying to get some kills without dying yourself, because that's going to get you huge advantages in games if you get good at that. And I guess another tip, just gameplay wise, in terms of staying alive, is when you're facing long range brawlers, something like Colt or Brock, where they have to shoot a huge amount of distance and it takes some time for their attack to get from where they're shooting it to where you are. Always sort of move side to side when you're trying to get close to them, so that way you can dodge their shots. And if you're constantly moving like this, it's going to be so much harder for them to aim and hit you and predict your movement, and that's going to let you take so much less damage, and it's going to help you stay alive for significantly longer. But that is the last tip I have for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when I release the next part of this beginner's guide. If you don't turn on notifications, you may not know at all when I post it, and you might forget about it and miss out on valuable tips that'll help you get better at this game. So make sure you turn on those notifications by hitting that little bell icon next to the subscribe button. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.